Thank you. I didn't tell you guys earlier what my background and stuff was. Believe it or not, I started out with one goal in life when I was about 6 years old, and that was to be a soldier forever and ever and ever, which I did. I went through WVU on a 4-year Army scholarship, spent 12 years active duty, got laid off from the Army. Believe it or not, you get laid off from any job. I got caught in the cutbacks in 1990, left active duty, went to Saudi Arabia, worked for 2 years in Saudi. Okay, come back, did some graduate work at WVU, worked for myself for 4 years, got tired of the 18, 20-hour days, and went to work for WVU as an operations guy, and ended up working with this organization now for 18 years. First off as the operations manager, and then as the director. I've worked with cars and with training my entire life. That's what I'm doing right now, is working with training, working with cars. In my younger life, I had that stint, like I said, working with natural gas and putting in natural gas pipelines and those type of things. So it all started working together. And now I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm doing something that's making a difference. This presentation that I want to do right now started out to talk to you folks that are interested in doing autogas and doing alt fuels, are concerned about what they have to do to their shops. Well, I was just going to give you some background, but it's taken on a new meaning and a new intensity over the last couple of days, and I'll explain some of that as I get into the presentation. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. All right, what this presentation won't do, I'm not going to turn you into code experts and all that stuff. I'm not going to talk to you about building codes and those type of things. I'm not going to show you how to calculate how much stuff you have to move the air, depending on how much propane you've got in the building and those type of things. Go ahead, please. What I do want to do is give you an overview about what you have to look at, the things you have to consider, and what you may need to talk to your authority having jurisdiction, those code enforcement folks out there, about changing your facility over. Okay. The first thing you got to do is figure out whether you're going to have a minor or a major facility. A minor facility is where you're going to do simple work on a vehicle, the stuff you're doing right now in your vehicles, changing oil, doing those type of works, those type of things. A major facility, basically think of it this way. If you're going to crack that fuel system, either at the storage or at the front end, it's a major facility. Go ahead, please. Okay, and this gives you the whole rundown of it. And Mike mentioned 30A. 30A is what lays it out. And that's going to have critical import in just a few seconds. Go ahead, please. A minor facility, where you're not getting into the fuel system itself. Go ahead, please. All right, concerns in a facility. How tall is the building? Okay. Real critical when you're dealing with natural gas, not as critical when you're dealing with autogas, propane autogas. But you still have to worry about it. Climate control, heating and air conditioning within the building. Ventilation, electrical, of course, always. The floor plan design. Anybody still have pits in their building? A maintenance building? Okay, I've run into a couple. If you got a pit, you got a major nightmare when you're dealing with autogas. Okay, roof construction, and this is the one that got me. Roof construction, whether you're dealing with autogas or with natural gas, is a concern, especially if you have one of these. If you got a peak, you just created an issue. If you got a flat roof that runs like that, it's easier to take care of. Okay, go ahead, please. These are codes governing everything, and the list of this presentation will be online, so you can go to these and turn to them. If you're going to start doing it, I recommend you grab one of these, each of these, and take a quick look at it, especially, like I said, 30A and the 52, which is the for gaseous fuels, and then 88A if you're going to park vehicles inside. All right, please. Now, propane, C3H8, low carbon, high energy intensity fuel, heavier than air, okay, and higher flammability range compared to gasoline. Heavier than air. The propane folks back out of this one for a second. What do I mean when I say heavier than air? Okay, propane's liquid, right? So when I release it, it's going to go to the floor, right? Okay. Now I'll get the propane folks back into it. When I release propane, how fast does it turn to a vapor? Okay, fairly quickly. Okay. What happens to that vapor? It stays low. It's heavier than air. That vapor is heavier than air. Now, no problem if every drop of propane that you were dealing with was 100% propane. Is it? Propane marketers? What else is mixed in with propane when you get propane? Help me out. Aha. There's a couple different things. There may be some butane, some ethane, but there's also a possibility there could be some methane in there. Methane is what? Natural gas. It goes up, okay, quickly. That's why I was talking about that peak roof creates an issue. The fact that propane is heavier than air and the gas stays low can also create some interesting issues. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it now. A couple days ago in Minnesota, some folks working on a propane vehicle, and it was a mass of errors in a lot of different ways. They pulled a fuel pump off of a propane tank without draining the tank. Some of those you can, and you don't have an issue. Others you can't. They didn't know the difference. So there was a training problem right there that if they'd have been trained on what to do, that probably wouldn't happen. But anyhow, they did it. So what did they do? They left the building right now. There was 5 people in the building and they took off. Hit the doors, opened the doors, and out the building they go. They're standing outside watching, not waiting on the fire department, everybody to get there to clear the building or anybody to go in and actually clear the building. They decide to go back because nothing's happened and they've had time for the propane to dissipate. It don't dissipate that fast, especially when it's laying down on the ground. They go back to the building. And this is where looking at your facility and training your people comes into play. One of the technicians that was working on the vehicle had a refrigerator in the back side of the shop. You think refrigerator? Okay, it should be an issue. What causes a refrigerator to work? An electric motor. When that electric motor kicks on and starts to spin, what does it create? Creates a spark. They were walking back into the building when the spark ignited the fuel, which had decreased to a level of combustibility. When they had the initial release, that fuel won't combust because it's too thick. But it had decreased enough to where it combusted and caused a quote-unquote explosion, which damaged the building and destroyed 5 buses within the building and a couple other things. Luckily, only one person got a little bit hurt, and he was hurt from stuff that was blown into him as he was walking toward the building. And they didn't get back inside. That's the reason you got to train folks and you got to know how to set your facility up. You got to think about what's going to be in there. With natural gas and all those stuff up above, you got to worry about. With propane, you got to worry about the floor and what's there and make sure that your heating and stuff is okay. But it's the same thing for gasoline and diesel fuel when you're dealing with that. You shouldn't have any issues with stuff on the floor if you're thinking. They weren't. Okay? I actually did an inspection of a shop one time for some folks and walked in and they had a electric space heater setting in the shop. This was a gasoline and diesel shop. That's the first thing you don't do. Okay? Next, please. And this is where it comes into an unintended release. They didn't intend to put that propane into that shop, but it sure happened, and it caused some major issues. Luckily, nobody got injured severely. And this is where I was talking about. You got to look at the facility and where it goes to. And think about your floors and how they're set up, which way they slope. They're supposed to slope outside so that things run outside the building. If that floor is laid to where it slopes toward the back, toward the wall, you just created another issue. Next, please. Huh?
We have that problem.
Yeah.
Water goes in the front.
And a lot of folks do. Now this is where the Vice President of the Propane Education and Research Council, Tucker Perkins, and I have a minor disagreement. Normally folks will tell you that for propane, if you've got a facility that handles natural gas or handles gasoline and diesel, you don't have to do anything to it. Well, my thought process is, with the fact that there is methane in that propane in all likelihood, having a gas detector is going to make me feel a lot better, especially if it's hooked to my doors and stuff, so that it opens the doors of the facility if it detects gas within the building. The other thing, I sort of like having a, where's our gas detector guy? Okay, I like having a gas detector down low for propane that pops those doors also, that allows that vapor to get away. You know, it's just me, there's no requirement for it, but I feel better doing it if I have that there. Ignition sources, we mentioned the refrigerator, heating and cooling, and welding. That's one most folks don't even think about. Most shops have a welder in it. And where's it sitting? Right there on the floor, okay? Ours was on wheels, and it was about 2 foot off of the floor. Perfect place if I'm running a propane in that shop. Next, please. Defueling of vehicles, okay? If you're going to run a propane shop with autogas, you need to have some way to defuel those tanks in any of those shops if you're going to crack that fuel system. Defueling the tank is the easiest, simplest way to try to keep any kind of an incident from happening. If you're working on a tank that has fuel in it, you always have the probability that there could be an issue. Yes, Mike?
May I suggest that if you're running autogas vehicles, you have a fuel supplier from the propane industry. And if you see, and whenever I teach fundamentals of propane, the first words out of my mouth are, if you are involved or see something you do not understand, stop. We are an ingenious society. We will do anything to make it work. We will take things apart just to see how they work. Well, that's okay if you're taking a transmission apart. But if you're taking an autogas system apart and you don't know everything there is to know about it, that's not the time to be doing that. Contact your fuel supplier because they are the experts in the propane industry and how this fuel works. Does that make sense?
Your fuel supplier or the folks that work on the vehicle for you. If you contact the Bluebird folks, you contact some of the Ford folks, or if there's a Roush folks next to you, using Roush vehicles, whoever did that vehicle for you, contact them. Don't get into it until you've got the proper training on it. If you go through our training classes, the stuff that we do, as Mike said, we're doing training right now for propane autogas vehicles. And we've done training classes all over the country. We're going to do a whole bunch more in the future. If you can get to one of those, we go through the systems and give you a rundown on what those systems are and how they work. And we bring in the experts to talk to them, to talk to our students. We'll have folks from Roush, we'll have folks from Alliance, we'll have folks from ICOM, and all the different manufacturers of OEM and conversion systems.
And if you're interested in that class, I've got business cards. I'm the guy coordinating it.
For the state of Ohio, yep. That bottom one, parking of vehicles indoors, you know, the parking thing talks completely about it. If you're going to park a vehicle indoors, make sure you have all the detectors and stuff you need, just in case there is something wrong, okay? And the other thing, I will say this, you know, as far as training goes, train your folks that if there is a problem with a vehicle, an incident, accident, whatever, that somebody inspects that fuel system before that vehicle goes any further, okay? Some of the things that Mike mentioned we're doing training on, we're developing training for a number of things with the autogas industry, but we're also developing some training for recovery vehicle operators For salvage yards and what to do with vehicles, if you turn your vehicle over to a salvage yard, it's nice to have those guys know what to do with that vehicle and with that fuel system on there. We're also doing body shops, training for body and fender shops, because OEMs don't do their own body and fender work anymore. They farm it out, and those folks need to know what those systems are too. Decommissioning of vehicle fuel tanks. The area where you can have the biggest headache is somebody tells somebody, take that tank off and put a new one on. The person automatically assumes the tank's empty. I tell folks with natural gas, with propane, with any fuel system, it's like a gun. Assume that it's full until you have verified it's not. And if it is got fuel in it, get the fuel out before you do anything else with it. And there's a number of systems out there that will help you defuel that vehicle. And there's training to go along with those systems. But make sure it's empty.
The thing about a propane tank is it's never empty
Right.
unless it's inert.
And you know, when you get into the properties of propane, you don't take a propane tank down to zero. Okay? Just don't happen. The way the valves and stuff are set up, it won't go completely empty. Okay, next please. So this is a good start. You know, determine your type of facility you're going to use, the type of fuel you're going to use. Make sure you know the codes and standards, and then get your AHJ involved as soon as possible. Okay, that authority having jurisdiction, that code official, that inspector, that fire marshal, whoever. Make sure that if they are not familiar with the fuel you're dealing with, you help make them familiar. Now, I will tell you this, after having dealt with these guys all over the country and numerous ones of them, don't try to tell them how to do their job. Because it's like that 5,000-pound gorilla. When you do, he's going to come back at you. And he ain't nice. So help them learn as you go along with them. Put the stuff down in front of them that you have and say, this is what I have found so far. You know, what do you know that I don't? And work with them, and they will end up working with you. But if you try to tell them how it's going to be, you're in trouble. Next, please. Yep. But the biggest thing is training your staff for any of the alt fuels. Alt fuels are no different than gasoline or diesel fuel. You've trained people in gasoline and diesel fuel for years. Propane is no different. It just, you need to train the people. Propane vehicles are a little different. Not less safe, actually more safe, but they're a little different. So make sure you train your folks on the vehicles themselves, on how to maintain the vehicles, and what the facility needs to be. And the facilities, I would like to say that automotive maintenance facilities are right there when it comes to meeting all the codes and meeting everything. And there's probably 10% of them that do that, that do meet all the codes. The other 90% of them don't come close in some cases. And we have to, you know, get those folks to bring those back to speed. Because no matter what happens, if you have an alt fuel in there and an incident happens, it's the fault of the alt fuel. Okay? That's what the public is going to tell you. That's what the media is going to tell you. It may not be right, but that's what it happens. Back in the 90s, we were doing alt fuel vehicles. And every time there was a problem with an alt fuel vehicle, it was the alternative fuel that was a problem. If that sucker had a flat tire, it was a problem with either the propane or the natural gas in the vehicle. And you laugh, but I'm dead serious. That's the way things went. They blamed the fuel rather than blaming the actual cause. Next, please. All right, that's my email address. Feel free, if you have a question, to get a hold of me. I'll have some cards that you can get one afterwards here. Has our website and stuff on it that leads to the propane network that we have with the Propane Education and Research Council. All the stuff we're doing with them, with Mike and the whole crew there. All the other alt fuels that we deal with that has connections to Chelsea and the Roush folks and all the folks that are doing propane autogas vehicles, to the Bluebird folks. So pick up one of those cards, look at those websites. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. That's one of the things that I firmly believe in what I'm doing. I hope that come across to you. We work with alt fuels all the time. That's my job. 365 days a year. I believe in it because I believe we have to do it as a country, as a population, and as a world. Because if we don't start cleaning things up even farther than we have, I've got 5 grandkids now. I want their world to be better when they get there than what we had when we got here. And that's what I work for every single day. All right? Thank you.